Hello, my name is Bob, 34 years old, a biochemist working at Novellum Pharma, a leading pharmaceutical company in the US, a giant in the medical industry. This is a place where breakthrough ideas can change the world, or at least the fates of a few individuals. I'm not the type to dream of fame or fortune. For me, the laboratory is my second home, where I immerse myself in test tubes, centrifuges, and numbers dancing across computer screens. Each day that passes, I feel the pulse of passion, of sleepless nights chasing a grand goal, a drug formula that could transform the lives of millions. Currently, I'm developing and researching a drug designed to prevent hair loss in the elderly. It may sound simple, but it's far from it. This isn't just about keeping a few strands of hair on someone's head. The formula, which I call Revive, has the potential to stimulate healthy hair follicle growth, slow the aging process of the scalp, and even improve overall scalp health. It's the result of over 18 months of relentless work, days when I forgot to eat lunch, nights spent in the lab until dawn just to recheck a chemical reaction for the 100th time. I've poured sweat, tears, and my entire heart into every formula, every sample. Revive isn't just a project, it's my dream, a testament to what I'm capable of achieving. My lab is located on the 5th floor of Novellum's building, a small but well-equipped room. White walls, the faint smell of chemicals, and the familiar hum of the centrifuge like a background soundtrack. I love the quiet here, where I can focus completely, but it's not always peaceful. Despite its glamorous exterior, this company is rife with internal drama. My colleagues, a group of talented but fiercely competitive scientists, are always trying to outdo one another. And above them all is Thompson, my boss, the head of research and development. Thompson is a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and eyes as sharp as a blade. He has a polite smile, but it always makes me uneasy, as if he's calculating something behind a flawless mask. He's known for his cunning, but also his ruthlessness. Within the company, there are whispers about Thompson's dark past, rumors that he once unfairly competed with a talented young scientist named Clara to secure his position as department head. Clara left the company in disgrace, and no one knows what became of her. Stories like these make me keep my distance from Thompson, even though I still have to work under him. I never thought I'd become his target. I'm just an ordinary scientist working hard and steering clear of power games. But I was wrong. Thompson has something I lack: burning ambition. He craves fame, money, and status. To him, Revive isn't just a project. It's his ticket to solidifying his position in the company, and perhaps even in the entire pharmaceutical industry. I began to notice this through the way he started paying attention to my project. Unexpected visits to the lab, subtle questions about progress, and that glint in his eyes when I presented results. I thought he was just doing his job as a boss, but looking back, I realized those were the signs of a storm brewing. Everything I do, from formulas to samples, is meticulously documented. My personal laptop holds all my notes, source codes, and detailed analyses. The company computer stores official reports, while the samples are locked away in a cabinet in the lab. I'm not a paranoid person, but I'm cautious. In this industry, ideas are the most valuable asset, and I don't want any risks to jeopardize Revive. I've poured my heart and soul into it, and I know that if it succeeds, it will change not only my life, but the lives of millions. In the days leading up to the project's launch event, the atmosphere at the company grew tense. Novellum had invited the media, investors, and high-ranking officials to attend. This was an opportunity for the company to assert its dominance, and I was confident that Revive would be the shining star of the event. I worked tirelessly, double-checking every detail from molecular structures to test results. I wanted everything to be perfect. But deep down, I felt an unsettling premonition. Something was off, though I couldn't pinpoint what. Perhaps it was the way Thompson patted my shoulder and said, "Bob, you're doing great. This project is going to be a huge hit." His smile, as always, sent a chill down my spine, and that uneasy feeling only grew stronger with each passing day. That evening, I left the lab late, around 8 p.m. The sky was pitch black, with only the dim, yellowish glow of streetlights illuminating the road home. I was driving my old Honda, my mind still lingering on Revive. Just 3 days until the launch event, and I was mentally rehearsing my presentation for the investors. Suddenly, a black SUV cut across my path, its blinding headlights startling me into slamming on the brakes. My heart pounded. Before I could process what was happening, 3 masked figures in black emerged from the shadows, silent as ghosts. "Get out of the car now!" a deep, chilling voice barked. I froze, my trembling hands gripping the steering wheel. The car door was yanked open, and before I could react, a tall figure dragged me out. I stumbled onto the pavement, my knees scraping against the cold asphalt. "Where's the bag?" a second man growled. I pointed shakily to the back seat where my bag, containing my laptop, more valuable to me than my life at that moment, sat. The laptop held all of Revive's data, formulas, notes, analyses. The man snatched the bag, checked it quickly, and turned to his accomplices. "Got it. Let's go." I tried to shout, "No, please, I need it." But a sharp kick to my stomach sent me crumpling to the ground, my breath caught in my throat. "Shut up if you want to live," the third man whispered, his voice as sharp as a blade. They vanished into the darkness, leaving me there in pain and panic. I don't know how long I sat on that road. 10 minutes? 20? It felt like my entire world had collapsed. My laptop, my documents, 18 months of my life's work, all gone. I asked myself, was this just a random robbery? But deep down I knew it wasn't. Someone had targeted Revive, targeted me. I dragged myself home, my mind spinning. That night I couldn't sleep, staring blankly at the wall, trying to recall every detail. The men's faces were hidden, but the voice of the last one haunted me. It sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. The next morning I rushed to the company, clinging to a faint hope that the data on the office computer was still there. But when I powered it on, the screen was empty. The Revive folder, hundreds of files, reports, source codes, experiment logs, was gone. My blood ran cold. I raced to the lab, nearly collapsing when I saw the lock on the storage cabinet broken and the test samples and printed documents missing. The lab, once my sanctuary, was now a chaotic mess. I called security and reported to management, but their response crushed me. The security cameras malfunctioned last night. Nothing was recorded. Malfunctioned? What a coincidence. I went to Thompson's office, hoping he could help. He sat behind his desk, his eyes filled with sympathy, but it felt so fake it gave me chills. "Bob, what a shame," he said, his voice flat, like he was reading from a script. "These things happen sometimes. Do you have any backups?" I shook my head, my throat tight. I had backups, but they were all on the stolen laptop or the wiped computer. Thompson sighed and patted my shoulder. "Stay calm. We'll figure something out." But his eyes, that wolfish glint, told me he knew more than he was letting on. I began to suspect him. Was Thompson involved? The thought made my heart race, not out of fear, but anger. With only 2 days left until the launch, I felt like I was falling into a carefully laid trap. Thompson started showing up more often, asking about the situation with a feigned look of concern. Every time he spoke, I sensed the malice behind his smile. I had no proof, only a gut feeling that he was behind it all. And if I was right, I hadn't just lost Revive. I'd lost my faith in justice. On the day of Novellum Pharma's idea launch event, I felt like I was stepping into an arena. The company's main hall was lavishly decorated, with glittering chandeliers casting light on rows of plush red chairs. The guests, investors, media, and high-ranking officials filled the room, their excited whispers spreading like a wave. This was Novellum's biggest annual event, where researchers like me had the chance to present our ideas to the board, partners, and the world. A brilliant idea could change a scientist's fate, elevating them from obscurity to a star in the pharmaceutical industry. But today I wasn't excited. I felt only a gnawing pain, like a slow-burning fire in my chest. Revive, my hair loss prevention drug, the product of 18 months of sleepless nights and relentless days in the lab, had been stolen. The laptop containing all my notes, The company computer with my reports and the samples locked in the lab cabinet were all gone after a mysterious robbery and break-in 3 days ago. I knew Thompson, my boss, was involved, though I had no proof. His sinister eyes and fake smile haunted me. Today, I was here not to present, but to witness what I feared most: Thompson stealing my work in front of everyone. I stood in a corner of the hall trying to blend into the crowd of colleagues and guests. My hand tightly gripped a cold cup of coffee, my palms sweaty. The hall was dazzling, but to me it was merely a stage for betrayal. One by one, researchers took the podium to present their ideas. One introduced a new antibiotic formula. Another discussed an innovative medical device. Each presentation was met with applause and admiring looks. I should have been up there talking about Revive, how it stimulates hair follicles, slows scalp aging, and offers hope to millions of elderly people. But now, I was just a powerless spectator. Then it was Thompson's turn. He strode to the podium, his black suit perfectly tailored, a confident smile like that of a seasoned politician. He adjusted the microphone, scanning the room with the air of someone who knew he was about to steal the spotlight. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his warm, resonant voice echoing through the hall. "Today, I am proud to introduce a revolutionary idea. Revive, a hair loss prevention drug for the elderly that not only enhances aesthetics but also improves quality of life." The crowd fell silent, then erupted in applause. I felt as if someone was crushing my heart. Every word he spoke was a stab. Revive was mine. I had built it from nothing, from complex chemical reactions to meticulous samples, yet there was Thompson, smugly taking credit as if I had never existed. He began presenting details, projecting slides I had created onto the large screen. Charts analyzing hair follicles, molecular structures, initial test results. All mine. I recognized every number, every line, as if they were my own handwriting. But no one in the room knew that. Journalists scribbled furiously, investors nodded, and CEO Elena Carter, seated in the front row, listened intently. She was a sharp woman, known for her fairness, but also her strictness. I wondered if she suspected anything. How could she? Thompson had orchestrated everything too perfectly, from the robbery to the data erasure. I wanted to scream, to rush the stage, grab the microphone, and tell the truth. But I had nothing. No laptop, no documents, no samples. Only my memories and the rage boiling inside me. Thompson spoke of months of tireless work and relentless creativity as if he were the one slaving away in the lab. My stomach churned, my breathing heavy. A colleague beside me, Sarah, whispered, "I didn't expect Thompson to come up with something this brilliant." I wanted to yell that it wasn't his idea, but I clenched my jaw, struggling to stay calm. During the Q&A, a journalist from the National Medical Journal stood up. "Mr. Thompson, how are Revive's clinical trials progressing? Are there any risks?" I held my breath. I knew Revive wasn't perfect. In early tests, I had noted risks of scalp inflammation and allergies in some subjects. I had planned to address these issues and propose improvements. But Thompson smiled, his voice smooth as silk. "We've conducted thorough testing. The results are very promising and we're ready for the next phase." I caught a fleeting moment of hesitation in his eyes, though he hid it well. He didn't know about the side effects because he hadn't created Revive. This was my chance. I knew the formula, its weaknesses, and how to fix them. But how could I prove it? I had no evidence, only the knowledge in my head. I glanced at Ms. Carter, noticing her jotting something down. Did she sense something off? I needed to act, but the weight of helplessness pressed on my chest like a boulder. The event ended and the guests dispersed. Thompson walked past me, flashing a triumphant smile. "Not a bad presentation, right, Bob?" he said, his voice light but laced with mockery. I stared into his eyes, searching for a hint of guilt, but he was too good at hiding it. Then as he turned away, his voice echoed in my mind like an alarm bell. "Not a bad presentation, right, Bob?" A chill ran down my spine. That voice, deep, cold, sharp as a blade, was the same as the one from the robbery a few days ago. The one that whispered, "Shut up if you want to live." My heart pounded. There was no mistaking it. It was Thompson. He wasn't just behind the robbery, he was directly involved. After Thompson walked away, his triumphant smile felt like a final dagger to my pride. But the moment his voice echoed in my mind, matching the voice of the robber from that night, a new fire ignited within me. It was no longer fear or helplessness, it was determination. I wouldn't let Thompson steal Revive, my dream. I had no physical evidence, but I possessed something he could never have. True knowledge of Revive, every minute detail of the formula, every chemical reaction, every potential risk. That was my weapon, and I would use it to turn the tables. The hall gradually emptied as the guests left, but I stayed, my mind racing with thoughts. I needed to speak with Elena Carter, Novellum's CEO. She was the only one with enough authority to uncover the truth, but also the hardest to convince. Known for her fairness, she was equally unforgiving toward baseless accusations. I knew that to gain her trust, I had to be smarter than Thompson, to prove that Revive was mine, and more importantly, that the formula he presented had flaws only I could address. Taking a deep breath, I approached the front row where Ms. Carter was speaking with a few investors. My heart pounded, sweat beading on my forehead. "Ms. Carter," I said, my voice trembling but steady. "May I speak with you for a moment? About Revive?" She turned, her sharp eyes piercing through me. "Bob, right?" she asked, her tone even but not cold. "What do you want to say?" I swallowed hard, knowing this was my only chance. "I believe there's something you need to know about the formula Mr. Thompson presented. It's not perfect, and I can prove it." Ms. Carter raised an eyebrow and gestured for me to follow her into a small meeting room beside the hall. Once we were alone, I began striving to keep my voice clear despite my racing heart. "Revive is my idea, Ms. Carter. I worked on it for 18 months from the initial formula to the trials. But 3 days ago, my laptop, documents, and samples were stolen. The company computer was wiped clean. I have no physical proof, but I know that formula inside out. And I know it has issues Mr. Thompson didn't mention." Ms. Carter crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on me. "You're accusing Thompson of stealing your idea? That's a serious claim, Bob. What evidence do you have?" I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment to bet everything. "Revive carries a risk of scalp inflammation and allergic reactions in some sensitive individuals," I said firmly. "In initial trials, I recorded a 7% incidence of side effects, particularly in those with sensitive scalps. I documented this and planned to refine the formula by adjusting the ratio of the hair follicle stimulant, specifically reducing the A17 compound to 0.3% and adding a scalp-stabilizing agent. But Thompson doesn't know this. If you ask him about the molecular structure or synthesis process, he won't be able to answer accurately. I can." Ms. Carter remained silent, her eyes weighing every word. "You're saying the formula Thompson presented could pose risks to users?" she asked. I nodded. "Yes. If it goes to widespread clinical trials without fixes, Novellum could face a disaster. I can prove I created Revive by explaining the process in detail, from chemical reactions to optimization. I'm ready to answer any question you have." She didn't respond immediately. Standing, she paced the room, her hand on her chin. "You realize that if this isn't true, your career is over?" she said sternly. I swallowed but nodded. "I know, Ms. Carter, but I can't let my work be stolen, and I don't want Novellum to take risks with an incomplete formula." She studied me for a moment longer, then nodded. "All right. I'll arrange a meeting with Thompson and the board. You'll have a chance to present your case, but Bob, if you're wrong, the consequences will be severe." I left the meeting room feeling like I'd just run a marathon. My mind was a whirlwind, but a spark of hope flickered within me. I knew I was walking a tightrope. Thompson was a cunning fox, and he wouldn't let me turn the tables easily. But his voice, the one that matched the robbers from that night, drove me forward. I returned to my office and began writing down every detail of Revive I could recall. The chemical formulas, compound ratios, and every step of the trial process. I had no laptop or documents, but my memory was something Thompson couldn't steal. That night, I didn't sleep. In my small apartment, the desk lamp cast light on pages filled with scribbled notes. I reconstructed every chemical reaction, every trial issue, and the solutions I'd planned. I knew the board meeting would be my final chance. If I couldn't convince them, not only would Revive forever bear Thompson's name, but my career would be over. But I was no longer afraid. I had lost too much, and now I had only one goal: to reclaim justice. On the day of the board meeting, I walked into Novellum's large conference room with a mix of confidence and nervous anticipation. The spacious room with its polished wooden table and the piercing gazes of the board members sent a shiver down my spine. Elena Carter, the CEO, sat at the head of the table, her face expressionless. Thompson sat across from me, still wearing his confident smile, but I caught a flicker of tension in his eyes. I knew he was worried, not about me, but about what I might say. Beside Ms. Carter were senior executives and a group of technical experts invited to evaluate the situation. I had one chance, and I couldn't afford to fail. Ms. Carter opened the meeting, her voice calm but sharp. "Bob, you claim that Revive is your idea and that the formula Mr. Thompson presented has issues. Today we'll get to the bottom of this. Begin." I took a deep breath, placing the stack of handwritten notes in front of me. Pages I'd spent the last 5 days frantically writing, reconstructing every detail of Revive from memory. "Ms. Carter, esteemed board members," I said, striving to keep my voice steady despite my pounding heart. "Revive is a project I developed over 18 months. I can prove this through my detailed knowledge of the formula, the synthesis process, and the issues Mr. Thompson failed to mention at the launch." Thompson let out a dry, mocking laugh, interrupting me. "Bob, you're desperate," he said. "I understand you're upset about losing your data, but accusing me is outrageous. Revive is my project, and I have the documentation to prove it." He slid a thick folder toward Ms. Carter, exuding confidence as if he held all the cards. I glanced at the folder, knowing it contained my stolen work, altered to bear his name. But I didn't waver. "Mr. Thompson," I said, locking eyes with him, "if Revive is yours, can you explain why the current formula risks causing scalp inflammation in 7% of test subjects? Or do you know how to adjust the A17 compound to address it?" The room fell silent. Thompson's brow furrowed, his smile stiffening. "That's just a minor detail," he replied, his voice slightly shaky. "We're addressing it in the next phase." I seized the moment. "A minor detail? Ms. Carter, if A17 isn't reduced to 0.3% and a scalp-stabilizing agent added, Revive could cause severe allergic reactions, potentially leading to lawsuits." I documented this issue in initial trials, but Mr. Thompson didn't mention it at the launch. I turned to the technical experts. "If you'll allow me, I can explain the entire synthesis process in detail, from chemical reactions to hair follicle optimization. Can Mr. Thompson do the same?" Ms. Carter nodded for me to continue. I began step by step, detailing every chemical reaction, every compound ratio. I drew the molecular structure on the whiteboard, explaining how I developed Revive from its initial concept to trials. The experts nodded, scribbling notes. Thompson tried to interject, claiming he oversaw the project. But when Ms. Carter asked him to explain the specific mechanism of hair follicle stimulation, he faltered, giving vague, evasive answers. I saw sweat beading on his forehead, and for the first time I sensed him losing his composure. Then, as I'd anticipated, bad news arrived. An assistant entered, whispering to Ms. Carter. She stood, her expression grave. "We've just received a report from the clinical trial team. Revive, with its current formula, has caused scalp inflammation in 10% of subjects in expanded trials. This is a serious issue." The room buzzed with murmurs. Thompson's face paled and he stammered, "It's just a minor error. We'll fix it." But Ms. Carter cut him off. "Mr. Thompson, if you're behind Revive, why didn't you foresee this? Bob warned us and he has a solution. I want to hear it." I stepped forward, outlining my solution. reducing A17, adding a stabilizing agent, and adjusting the trial process to ensure safety. The experts nodded, one even asking about dosage specifics, which I answered fluently. Thompson had nothing left to say. Ms. Carter fixed him with an icy stare. "Mr. Thompson, I need an explanation. If Revive is yours, why does Bob know more about every detail?" Thompson stammered but couldn't provide a convincing response. The truth was starting to unravel, like a curtain being torn away. Ms. Carter remained silent for a moment, then turned to me. "Bob, your account is compelling, but we need concrete evidence to address this accusation. I'll order an internal investigation immediately. If you're right, we'll get to the bottom of this." She looked at Thompson, her voice stern. "And you, Thompson, I suggest you prepare yourself. This meeting isn't over." Thompson's face drained of color, his confident smile gone. I stood there, feeling a mix of relief and tension. The truth was drawing closer, but I knew the road ahead was still fraught with risks. Miss Carter gave me a slight nod, a silent promise that justice would be served. Ms. Carter left the meeting room, leaving behind a heavy atmosphere like the calm before a storm. Thompson stood, trying to maintain his composure, but I noticed his hands trembling as he gathered his documents. He glanced at me, his eyes no longer mocking but wary, like a cornered animal. I said nothing, quietly leaving the room, my heart pounding. The meeting had sparked a glimmer of hope, but I knew the truth wasn't fully exposed yet. Thompson was a cunning fox, and if I wasn't careful, he could turn the tables. But his voice, the one that matched the robbers from that night, kept my resolve burning. I wouldn't stop until justice was served. The next morning, Novellum was a beehive of activity. Ms. Carter kept her word, ordering an internal investigation with unprecedented speed. A team of top IT experts was brought in, specialists in tracing data and detecting anomalies. I was called to the IT room, where computer screens glowed with lines of code and charts. One expert, a guy named Ryan with thick glasses, explained that they were scouring the company servers for traces of deleted data. "If someone erased your files," Ryan said, "they couldn't wipe them completely. There's always a trace, no matter how small." I nodded, but anxiety gnawed at me. Thompson wasn't foolish. He'd surely covered his tracks well. While the IT team worked, Ms. Carter contacted local law enforcement. I was asked to provide details about the robbery, the time, place, and descriptions of the 3 masked men. I recounted the voice of the last one, the cold, deep tone I was certain belonged to Thompson. "I know it sounds crazy," I told an investigator, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, "but I believe he was there." She took careful notes. "We'll check traffic cameras near the scene," she said. "If there's any lead, we'll find it." The following days were a tense waiting game. I barely slept, sitting in my apartment, staring at my stack of Revive notes, trying to keep my mind sharp. Every time my phone rang, my heart leapt into my throat. Then, on the afternoon of the 3rd day, Ryan called me to the IT room. "You need to see this," he said, his voice brimming with excitement. On the screen was a detailed report, evidence of data deletion on the company server, executed from Thompson's admin account on the exact night my lab was broken into. "He thought he wiped it clean," Ryan said, "but the server keeps hidden backups. We also found encrypted emails between Thompson and an unknown account discussing handling the employees' data." I clenched my fists, feeling like I'd just glimpsed light at the end of the tunnel. At the same time, law enforcement sent over a video from a traffic camera near the robbery site. The footage was grainy but clear enough to show a tall man with a gait strikingly similar to Thompson's, standing near the black SUV. I watched it over and over, my heart racing. It was him, I was certain. 3 weeks later, Ms. Carter called an extraordinary board meeting, and the atmosphere in Novellum's large conference room was heavy as lead. I walked in, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. The room was smaller than the Idea Launch event hall, but the pressure was exponentially greater. The senior executives sat around the table, their faces stern. Thompson sat at the far end, his smug smile gone. He looked haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, as if he knew the storm had arrived. Ms. Carter stood at the head of the table, her gaze icy, holding a thick folder. I knew it contained the investigation's findings, evidence uncovered with the help of the IT team and law enforcement. Ms. Carter began, her voice resolute. Today, we're here to address a grave accusation. Mr. Thompson, head of R&D, is suspected of stealing Bob's idea and orchestrating the theft of his data. The room fell deathly silent. My heart pounded, but not out of fear. It was the anticipation of justice. Ms. Carter continued. The IT team found evidence of data deletion on the company server executed from Mr. Thompson's admin account on the night Bob's lab was broken into. Encrypted emails between him and an external group reveal he hired individuals to steal Bob's laptop and erase his data. Thompson shot up, his voice trembling. That's a lie. I've done nothing wrong. I was just... But Ms. Carter raised her hand, cutting him off. Mr. Thompson, we also have footage from a traffic camera near the site where Bob was attacked. The figure in the video matches your build, and Bob has confirmed that one of the robbers' voices was identical to yours. Murmurs rippled through the room. I looked at Thompson, seeing him clench his fists, his face pale. I only wanted the company to succeed, he muttered, his voice weak like someone who knew they'd lost. Ms. Carter turned to me. Bob, you've proven your competence and the truth. Revive is yours and we'll ensure you're recognized. She scanned the room. The board has unanimously decided Mr. Thompson will be terminated immediately for fraud and endangering the company. A security officer entered, gesturing for Thompson to leave. He stood, stumbling, his eyes vacant. As he passed me, he didn't dare meet my gaze, only muttering, "You think you've won, Bob?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Justice had spoken. After the meeting, Ms. Carter sent a company-wide email. Thompson has been terminated for stealing an idea and orchestrating a data theft. Bob is the creator of Revive and will be promoted to research team leader. The news spread like wildfire and the pharmaceutical industry buzzed. Thompson became a laughingstock, from a shining star to a disgraced failure. I was vindicated and justice was finally served. But the storm didn't end with Novellum. Thompson's downfall became the epicenter of a media and legal maelstrom. The local police, using the traffic camera footage and my testimony about the robber's voice, launched a criminal investigation. They tracked down the group Thompson had hired, uncovering his contact with a small criminal gang through a middleman. The encrypted emails found by Novellum's IT team were handed over to law enforcement, serving as key evidence. One morning, I received news. The police have detained Thompson for questioning. They found messages on his phone confirming he directly orchestrated the theft of your laptop. It didn't stop there. Novellum didn't settle for termination. The company filed a lawsuit against Thompson seeking damages for fraud, reputational harm, and risks to the Revive project. The lawsuit quickly led to his savings being frozen. I heard from a company lawyer that Thompson had spent a fortune hiring the robbers and covering his tracks, but now he had nothing left to fight with. His lavish suburban house, sleek car, and expensive suits, all seized or frozen. Thompson lost everything, left with only disgrace. After hearing what happened to Thompson, I didn't laugh or gloat. Sitting in my new office with a nameplate reading Bob Research Team Leader, I looked out the window, my heart heavy. Justice had been served, but it left a scar. I thought to myself, in this life, fairness may come late, but no one escapes the consequences of their wrongs forever. Revive was mine, but this victory wasn't just about glory. It was proof that the truth always finds a way to surface.